everybody. So, how can we even begin to describe 2020 in the sports world? We went from the Super Bowl last year to canceled seasons, to no sports at all for almost 6 months, to amended season restarts in August, with repauses, political infusion and protests, and even with no fans, it was still the most fans the Mets have seen in years. And as a diehard Phillies fan, I don't know who you root for, I had to do it. But what's crazy was that on one particular evening back in September, you had 10 different sporting events airing at once in prime time. For me, that's a dream scenario and a mental explosion all at once. Can I manage 3 screens at once while still keeping an eye on my kid? In just a few months, we went from no choices to too many choices, like the NHL in August and the NBA playoffs running against General Hospital. In short, I think we can all agree that was just 2020 being 2020. So here's some keys to think about coming into 2021. Sports are not going away, and fans will continue to engage. Sports may be one of the first and few things that will get back to very close to being back to normal as schedules get more in tune with their time of year. We see that now with the NBA, NHL, NCAA basketball, and baseball. Overall, viewerships of sports actually increased in 2020. More people were watching, but were diluted across so many more options in a small window of time. This forced networks and teams to get creative with your partnerships, and therefore created some cool new ways to integrate into the games that they never had before, and ways that aren't going to go away. So 2021 may continue to see some of the same, but regularity will be the benefit this year as long as there is no second wave of COVID, or third or fourth. No fans or very limited number of fans will likely continue until the fall seasons, probably with football. These will be the first full seasons to have a better opportunity to re-engage in-stadium fans. As sponsors, we can expect to see innovative ideas and will need to continually adjust strategies to stay connected to fan bases in whatever form they decide to consume the content. Teams are being forced to remain flexible to these ideas because while they're seeing increased spending on broadcast media, they're still taking a hit in stadiums and arenas. Teams are fighting the local networks for share and have a unique platform to boost exposure. And what advertiser doesn't want to continue to include the prestigious in-game spot into their ad schedules? I mentioned a little earlier that sports viewership actually increased in 2020, and I bet there are some doubters. Given how deprived of sports we were for so many months, the returns in late August and September were huge. Even the casual fan and very light sports viewers were tuning in, and overall total numbers were up. Live games were doing 7 and 8 ratings in demo. But because we had everything happening at once, NBA and NHL restarts, a shortened MLB season, NFL, PGA, NASCAR, etc., fans literally had multiple choices throughout the day. This caused ratings per sport and even across other programming that were non-sport to get diluted. The NBA was airing games at noon on a weekday and then the NHL at 3 in the afternoon, in addition to all the other primetime games that were still to come that day on both a local and national level. So the effect made ratings per game dip from the previous season, and that year-over-year comparison wasn't a fair view of the trend. But it did create some havoc for advertisers on delivery, forcing vendors to make good weight on the purchase amounts in an abbreviated, shortened season. What also grew out of 2020 sports viewership were the levels of brand awareness. Harmelin Sports Marketing Team likens it to something we call the NASCAR effect, how race fans know the individual sponsors of their favorite driver and are very loyal for that support. For example, you would never see a Tony Stewart fan shopping at a Lowe's or a Dale Jr. fan, Dale Earnhardt Jr. that is, drinking anything but a Budweiser. As fans watched more sports content on their screens, they became more aware of the sponsors. Necessity created innovation. Advertisers and sponsors found new ways to get their brand and message in front of fans and engaged with viewers in multiple ways across multiple devices. That's key. And these visuals, many that went beyond spot and integration into the broadcast, provided some good wins for the brands. As noted on the chart, The NBA viewers had some of the highest brand recall for those that had TV visible signage, indexing 2 times higher than other advertisers who simply ran spot schedules. Continuing with fan engagement, sports streaming is seeing significant growth, as well as viewers engaging with the platforms. Just as connected device usage grew last year, many viewers now had time to learn and activate their smart TVs and connected devices, download apps and follow teams, and actively sought out sports content to watch. The viewers gave themselves more control of not just what to watch, but how they wanted to watch it. You'll notice a similar story to what's been told earlier in this presentation with audio and video viewership. Teams saw 30 to 65% growth in app downloads and followers. Teams. Live streaming numbers grew by double digits. The August return of NASCAR last year boasted a 50% growth of streaming viewers. Fans are finding the trending technology and teams are evolving with it. Sports viewers will always find a way to get the content, and advertisers need to be adept in knowing the different ways to reach their audience. Choosing linear TV only could cut out a huge percentage of your target. There are also 2 quickly emerging trends in sports as well. The first of which is near and dear to many of our hearts, sports gambling. And yes, my bracket is busted. Betting on a mobile device is currently live in 9 states, with several more to be added throughout 2021. Mobile and in-app sports betting has significantly increased over the last 18 months as fans continue to engage with their favorite teams. We've all been inundated with DraftKings and FanDuel ads, and now more than a dozen operators have come online with license approvals in various states. Much like we saw with the growth of fantasy football leagues over 20 years ago, but to a much greater extent now, sports fans are even more intent on watching their teams play live since they have money riding on the games. And that includes in-game handles, which have increased to nearly 40% of all U.S. bets placed. Interest levels in sports has deepened for even the casual fan and made them a more avid viewer, helping to drive the overall increase we've been seeing. As more states continue to come online, this space will likely see an increased growth of fans looking for more outlets for their sports needs. The second growing trend is esports. The pandemic really catapulted esports for the younger generation, and we're always trying to reach them. We've recently seen this sport popping up in several cities, as teams are now building arenas for it. The Philadelphia Fusion are building a new 3,500-seat gaming arena in our South Philly gaming stadium district, set to open later this year. They plan on hosting the Overwatch League, some League of Legends tournaments, and other gaming events, shows, and concerts. If you're not familiar with these leagues, check them out. They're pretty exciting. It's a great platform to reach the younger audiences and is infused with technology opportunities. But the global scale of esports and limited ability to localize by region, state, or market in the US is prohibitive. Unless you're a global, or at the very least a national brand, sponsorship is difficult. For example, even a local League of Legends team like Dignitas up in North Jersey only has 40% of its overall fans in the US, with 60% of those located outside of the tri-state area. So to wrap up, some key thoughts or takeaways here for sports. It's still a buyer's market. There's available opportunity to take advantage as sports vendors look to replace canceled agreements. But the time to act is now. As season scheduling has begun to regulate, advertisers are jumping back on board and space will go quickly. Getting in now still leaves room to make changes once you're in, so don't feel like you're locked in for the duration. Vendors will accommodate for your clients' needs. And finally, be flexible in what you're willing to do or what you're able to do. It's not always about the biggest sign getting the most exposure. As we mentioned, consumer habits have forever changed, and we need to move with them and integrate into their life. Becoming a part of the experience adds more depth and creates a relationship to the brand. Extend yourselves, and the consumers, aka the fans, will gravitate to you.